Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to all. A great pleasure to be moderating today's session on Egypt's Housing for All program. Our panelists need no introduction. Dr. Marja Abdel, CEO of Egypt's Social Housing and Mortgage Finance Fund. Dr. Marja Hoek Smit, a World Bank consultant, a housing finance expert that ran the International Housing Finance Program at Wharton School of Business for so many years, and advising many governments on housing finance policies. Before we start our conversation, and as the World Bank, as representing the World Bank, we've been supporting Egypt's efforts in improving access to affordable housing finance to the lowest income groups for many years, and more recently through a $1 billion program. We will watch a video showcasing Egypt's efforts in greening social housing. So can we stream the video now?
مشروع سكن لكل المصريين مشروع أطلقته الدولة في 2014 بهدف توفير السكن لمنخفضي ومتوسطي الدخل عن طريق الدعم والإتاحة والمساندة. المشروع حتى الآن انتهى من تنفيذ حوالي 600 ألف وحدة سكنية، في حوالي 840 ألف وحدة سكنية بدأنا العمل فيهم، وهم دول اللي انتهى منهم ال 600 ألف. خصصنا أكثر من 500 ألف وحدة سكنية، وبالتالي عدد المستفيدين ممكن نقول إنه تجاوز 2.5 مليون شخص، لو بافتراض ان عدد افراد الاسره 5 افراد. الوحدات السكنيه اللي بينفذها صندوق الاسكان الاجتماعي ودعم التمويل العقاري بتباع للمواطنين بنظام التمويل العقاري المدعوم، والمدعوم ده يعني بنقدم دعم نقدي للفئات الاكثر احتياجا في الدخل، بنقدم دعم في سعر الفايده، دعم في المرافق، دعم في تكلفه الارض، واي متغيرات بتحدث على سعر الوحده. حتى الان زي ما قلنا حوالي 500 ألف مستفيد أخذوا تمويل عقاري من عدد 31 جهة تمويل. التمويل يمكن وصل ل 52 مليار اللي تم منحه من البنوك وشركات التمويل العقاري. الدعم النقدي للفئات الأقل دخلا يعني بيتراوح ما بين 5 وحتى 60 ألف جنيه للشخص الواحد، بلغ حوالي 7.3 مليار جنيه حتى الآن منذ بداية عام 2014. برنامج طبعا من أهم برامج الحماية الاجتماعية، فضلا عن أنه من أهم برامج الشمول المالي أيضا، لأنه المتعاملين فيه كثير منهم بيتعامل لأول مرة مع النظام المصرفي. مشروع سكن لكل المصريين مشروع أطلقته الدولة في 2014 بهدف توفير السكن لمنخفضي ومتوسطي الدخل عن طريق الدعم والإتاحة والمساندة. المشروع حتى الآن انتهى من تنفيذ حوالي 600 ألف وحدة سكنية، في حوالي 840 ألف وحدة سكنية بدأنا العمل فيهم، وهم دول اللي انتهى منهم ال 600 ألف. خصصنا أكثر من 500 ألف وحدة سكنية، وبالتالي عدد المستفيدين ممكن نقول إنه تجاوز 2.5 مليون شخص، لو بافتراض ان عدد افراد الاسره 5 افراد. الوحدات السكنيه اللي بينفذها صندوق الاسكان الاجتماعي ودعم التمويل العقاري بتباع للمواطنين بنظام التمويل العقاري المدعوم، والمدعوم ده يعني بنقدم دعم نقدي للفئات الاكثر احتياجا في الدخل، بنقدم دعم في سعر الفايده، دعم في المرافق، دعم في تكلفه الارض، واي متغيرات بتحدث على سعر الوحده. حتى الان زي ما قلنا حوالي 500 ألف مستفيد أخذوا تمويل عقاري من عدد 31 جهة تمويل. التمويل يمكن وصل ل 52 مليار اللي تم منحه من البنوك وشركات التمويل العقاري. الدعم النقدي للفئات الأقل دخلا يعني بيتراوح ما بين 5 وحتى 60 ألف جنيه للشخص الواحد، بلغ حوالي 7.3 مليار جنيه حتى الآن منذ بدايه عام 2014. برنامج طبعا من اهم برامج الحمايه الاجتماعيه، فضلا عن انه من اهم برامج الشمول المالي ايضا، لانه المتعاملين فيه كثير منهم بيتعامل لاول مره مع النظام المصرفي. الشركات اللي بيسند ليها الاعمال بتتم في مناقصات واضحه، ويعني شروطها معلنه للجميع، وبيتقدم فيها المقاولين. طبعا ساهمت في يعني زياده عدد المتعاملين والمقاولين. احنا يمكن اكثر من 2000 شركه مقاولات تعاملت، اغلبهم من القطاع الخاص، البنوك وشركات التمويل العقاري اغلبها بنوك ايضا خاصه. البرنامج ايضا بيتعامل مع متوسطي الدخل، لكن متوسطي الدخل بياخدوا اتاحه، ومن هذا نقدر نقول انه البرنامج هو يعني اكثر عدد من الوحدات اللي بتنفذها الدوله كبرامج، بيمثل حوالي 72% من اجمالي السكن المنفذ عن طريق الدوله. اتاح طبعا عدد كبير من فرص العمل المباشره وغير المباشره، يمكن وصلت لحد 4 مليون فرصه عمل. في اطار طبعا ان احنا يعني اكبر منفذ للوحدات السكنيه لمنخفض الدخل، فاحنا بدانا منذ 2018 نشتغل على برنامج اسكان اخضر صديق للبيئه يتيح استدامه، وبدانا في التنفيذ بالفعل على ارض الواقع. الإسكان الأخضر احنا هننفذ فيه 25,000 وحدة سكنية في عدد من المدن الجديدة: أسوان الجديدة، الغردقة، حدائق العاصمة، العاشر من رمضان، أكتوبر الجديدة، والعبور الجديدة.
ساكنة في الحي ال11 من ساعة ما اتجوزت، وإيجار طبعا، فقدمت في الإسكان الاجتماعي جات لي الشقة بعد 3 سنين، يعني ما طولتش برضه الحمد لله. والمشروع بصراحة اللي أنا قعدت فيه كويس وتشطيبه حلو جدا، ولا بجد يعني حاجة كويسة.
هنا في جناين، في خضرة، يعني الشوارع مسفلتة نظيفة، خدمات هنا كويسة، المواصلات موجودة، مفيش حتة العشوائيات، مفيش تكاتك.
غاز طبيعي، في مساحات خضراء، في مدارس، في حضانات، في كل حاجة بصراحة، وفي خصوصية، يعني لا فيش محلات تحت العماير، في مول، في خصوصيات حلوة يعني.
خدمات السوبر ماركت، الصيدليات، الجوامع، الكنايس، في مساحة. الدنيا هنا هادية، مش يعني الأول كنت قاعد في منطقة زحمة ودوشة وكده، لكن هنا الدنيا هادية وأمان قوي. السام قريبة، كل حاجة يعتبر موجودة.
نقلت هنا علشان أبقى جنب المدارس، وكمان قبل ما أنقل اضطريت يعني أشوف يعني الوسائل اللي هنا اللي ممكن تساعدني في الراحة. لقيت إن في مولات، في محلات كتيرة، صيدليات، وده غير كده إن في ملاعب. ده أهم حاجة عندي، إن أنا ألعب كورة. وبعد ما سجلت في المدرسة وقعدت هنا، الموضوع اتطور معايا. لقيت إن يعني المكان هنا مريح جدا. تمام، الشبكة تمام، ودلوقتي النت تركب، فالموضوع بقى متكامل. الاتوبيسات اللي هي مواصلات مصر عملوها علشان تسهل معانا الموضوع، وان احنا بدل ما عشان اروح رمسيس واركب مرتين وثلاثه بقى ممكن اركب مره واحده. وكمان الاتوبيس ده يعني السعر بتاعه مش كتير، السعر بتاعه قليل خالص.
انا كنت ساكن في العمرانيه، بعد كده نقلنا هنا اكتوبر، ساكن دهشور.
مدرستنا هنا مدرسة الحياة رسمية للغات، وبنلعب بقى الملعب هنا ملعب النرجس قريب من البيت، يعني كل حاجة قريب، كل حاجة في المدينة، ما بنطلعش بقى بره وزحمة وبتاع وكده.
Let me start by Dr. May. If you can walk us through the history of the program, what are the key themes, parameters, results achieved so far?
You'll use your mic. Mine is not working. Thank you so much, Laila, and thank you so much, Marja. I'm so sorry you're not here. We've been partners for the past 15 years. Marja is my dear professor before being the expert of the World Bank. She is the one who has taught us that no successful inclusive housing finance policy can ever happen without housing finance. So thanks to her, we have been following that path ever since. And thank you, Laila and the World Bank for co-sharing with us this event. We have been partners maybe since 2006. We have started by preparing the grounds to have a mortgage system first, because as I explained earlier, we need a well-functioning mortgage system so that we can have a sustainable housing finance program. So we've worked a lot on building this infrastructure from 2006 up till 2012, I think. We've had an operation with the bank, 300 million operation that was a budget support operation, but that was first directed to build the infrastructure of the mortgage market, put together the parameters of a program. I think the operation was successful in a sense, but we couldn't scale to the levels desired until we started the new operation in 2014 to build also the supply side, not just the mortgage market, because we've built the mortgage market, but we didn't have enough supply of units for low income to start scaling up the program. So we had this financing from the bank, first an operation for 500 million. We worked together on the parameters of the program to make sure we do the right targeting. So we started by putting the targeting criteria, setting the income levels of the individuals and the households we are targeting, and we were reviewing this gradually to make sure we are targeting the most needy and eligible persons. The parameters also included setting house prices and reviewing those house prices. We needed to bring in private and public banks to be able to find stable sources of financing for beneficiaries. Maybe we started over with 3 or 4 public banks. We realized early on that we need some good incentives to bring in the banks and the mortgage companies. So as a banker, I was quite aware that the banks will need some decent margins to accept extending financing to low income who mostly were not bankable before. Most of them never had any transactions with banks. So we agreed with the central bank on setting a unified criteria between all banks and to offer margins for the banks that is around 4.5% over 20 years. So that was quite good to start with. Banks in the beginning were not really very positive because, as I said, they haven't dealt with the low income category before. But with time, we started to see more appetite coming in from the banks. We started with 4 banks in 2014. The following years, more banks coming in, and by now we have 31 banks. We've built a good history. The default rates of the beneficiaries are quite low. So more banks were encouraged to come in, and we started even reducing the incentives offered to bank because now we have the track record. We were quite aware that we need to pay some subsidy because we have a lot of affordability issues. The house prices here are around between 11 to 15,000 US dollars. The income levels with the regular mortgage rates of 15 to 16% are quite high. The house prices compared to incomes are high, so we needed to create a subsidy scheme that is smart and that ensures the right targeting. So we decided on a program that has subsidies that are higher to the lower income levels and that reduce gradually once the income is higher. Investigation of the beneficiaries, that was also one key lessons learned from previous programs that were not sustained because the targeting was not right. The banks had default issues with beneficiaries, so we decided to set investigation arms for the fund to investigate the buyers to make sure they don't present frauded documents, their income levels is right, they don't own houses, and so on. And we established those companies with private companies that are doing the investigations for banks for their other retail products. So that was also one key issue. Maintenance was also a key issue that we suffered from in all our previous programs, so we made sure to establish a maintenance company. We take a maintenance deposit from beneficiaries, 5% of house price that is also paid on installment together with the mortgage, and we use the interest that we get from those deposits to cover the maintenance costs of the units. So far, I think we've done good. We unified the criteria. We tried also to approach the marginalized groups that were never able to access mortgage loans or public housing. So we issued a unified criteria with the central bank in 2016 that allowed informal income people to come in at higher down payments. Women were also provided chances to own their homes, and together with the banks we managed and with the expertise of the World Bank, we managed to make sure that women who pay the installments together with their husbands, they have to be owners, they have to co-own the house, and if they pay alone the installments, then the house is in their name. So by now we have like 23% of beneficiaries are women, and maybe around 20% are people who have informal income, so not necessarily employed people.
Thank you. Very impressive results. And speaking of financial inclusion, I think around 65% of beneficiaries are first-time borrowers. Let me turn to Dr. Marja. We miss you. We miss having you here. To bring in an international perspective, how do you see the Egyptian experience with affordable housing in comparison to other developing economies? What elements are in line with good practice? Over to you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me all well. I'm sorry not to be there, but at least I'm there in the video. Yeah, what stands out in the scheme in Egypt is, of course, its scale. Many countries try to reach affordable housing targets, but not at this particular scale. And it has reached it in a short while. But most important, apart from scale, is the depth of the in the income distribution that this program is reaching. The households at the 25th 30th percentile of the income distribution through private sector funded mortgages. And that's very important. The banks take the risk on these customers, the credit risk. And that is quite unique. In many countries, the risk is not all with the banks, or it is there are only government banks with subsidized funding, and that's different. So what stands out is indeed how deep in the income distribution this scheme is going, and therefore it allows, for instance, other ministries like social solidarity to cater for, with upgrading programs, social rental programs, for a really much smaller part of the population that cannot yet be reached by the mortgage sector. So that is quite unique. The other part is the locational control in the program. So the location is an important aspect. So many countries, again, have reached low-income housing segments of the population, but very often at the cost of poor location. And that is not the case in this scheme. The location of the schemes is very carefully selected, and the projects are well connected. And that is unique because it really reduces the chances of high vacancies. We have seen that in other countries. So there are a few very good characteristics of these schemes, of this project, that stands out in the international arena. Thank you, Laila.
Thank you, Dr. Marja. Back to your point, Dr. Marja, on the role of financial institutions, a very critical one. If you can share with us what exactly had to be in place to convince originally state-owned financial institutions and more recently expand to include different private sector players, also whether banks or mortgage finance companies?
First of all, as I said, you need to put in subsidy so that the risk is not very high. You need to bring in down payment, so beneficiaries have to bring down payments. We have a low loan-to-value ratio, I think, between 65 to 70%. The subsidy element in the loan is big, so everyone is keen on keeping this house. It's like a safety net for beneficiaries. The decent margins, definitely for the banks, so 4.5% was quite big. We worked on this basis for the first 20 billion. This was a teaser for the market. And with years, they started to see people, their income increase. They can cross-sell other products by the banks to those beneficiaries. They stay in a relation with the bank for 20, and now we have like the 25 and the 30 years, and their income grow quickly, and the loan-to-value diminishes with time. So they have chances to offer other products. So they're making quite a good while. If you don't give the banks the opportunity to make decent margins and make profits under those low-income loans, then you will end up with the public banks who will do this for a while and then also might abstain of continuing that. So 10 years and the track record with less than 1% default rate has encouraged each and every bank, private bank, international bank, to come to join our program. The investigation part was also crucial. It saves them a lot of hassle. They don't have to go, so the product is is easy, very little transaction cost associated. Definitely the mortgage part was also key. We needed to work a lot on facilitating and streamlining the mortgage procedure. So for the units offered by the fund, we do a fast tracking registration for the units and the possibility of registering the mortgage. So that was also crucial. So far, the banks didn't need that, but at least they are comfortable. They have the collateral. The maintenance part, as I explained, is also crucial because this is the collateral, after all, that the bank have. So they have to make sure that it is well maintained and the value is really preserved in it.
Thank you. Would you like to add on that, Marja, at all?
Yeah, I would like to add just a few small things, and that is that there is also some pressure on the agency, on SHF, you know, when they deal with the private banks. So it's not, it is, they have to have a steady stream of applicants because the banks need to know that on a regular basis, when they build their department for this type of lending, that there is a steady stream of applicants coming their way. And that puts a lot of pressure on SHMFF. So there is also that tension and the screening, as May already mentioned, the pre-screening and the lack of corruption in that process is critical. If there is a lot of corruption in applicant selection, that will mean that the banks have to get a pool of people that they have to reject a lot from. And that's very costly for the banks. So the third part is the IT component. It has to be connected, the bank has to be connected in real time with the agency to make it all work. Everyone has to know who is doing what, whether the mortgages are doing well, which beneficiary is ready for the down payment, and so on and so forth. So these system issues are also very important for the audience to understand that it doesn't come very easily. Yeah, just to add that.
It's a long process, definitely. I missed that part, yeah. Marja, you're absolutely right. The automation process with the banks is what made us able to book more than 9,000 and 10,000 a month. Maybe in the beginning we had slow beginnings because of this automation issue. Now we have less staff to deal with this huge number of applicants. We have more than 1.5 million applicants and we have only 250 employees. And this is thanks to automation, the whole process with investigation companies, with the banks. And also we managed to agree with banks on the flow of applications they will get in which locations and branches. They all had to build capacities and spend resources. So they had to make sure that they will have a constant flow of applications. So we set targets with each and every bank and we sent the number of files well screened before. The rejection rates, we started with very high rejection rates in the beginning, and then by 2016 with the unified criteria and with the, as I said, the portfolio maturity, things improved. Now we have a rejection rate that is around 24% between the pre-screening we do and what the banks do. We launched recently middle income initiatives on behalf of other institutions like NOCA and so on. The rejection rates are much higher because this is fairly new and the beneficiaries are not really well educated to know how to apply for a mortgage, and we are not doing also this pre-screening. So for the middle income, for instance, we have a rejection rate that is between 50 and 60%. For low income, it's around between 20 to 22%.
So in conclusion and to wrap up, the world currently is witnessing multiple crises, or polycrises as they say, and Egypt is not new to volatile periods. So if we can share some lessons learned regarding how the program reacted, let's say after 2011 when there was increased inflation, volatile periods. We start by Dr. May and then turn to Dr. Marja.
We've gone through a lot of cycles, difficult times, 2011, and then COVID, also 2 years of COVID. And in 2016, we had flotation, so we had seen increases, also a wave of inflation, and now a second wave of inflation. And all through this, we had to deal with the challenges by reviewing subsidy levels, the method of paying the subsidy between interest rate buy-down mechanisms, mix between interest rate and down payment subsidies. Down payment subsidies are generally cheaper and less risky and demand side, so we prefer them. But at times of high inflation, we are obliged to have a mix of both. I hope by the time this inflation wave also cools down, we can get back again to our down payment subsidies. But we definitely need some level of subsidy. It shouldn't exceed, I think, between the 40 and 50% of the unit price in all elements of subsidy, supply and demand side, but preferably we rely on demand side subsidy more. We will have to review what we are doing currently, since we are now in one of those difficult cycles. So going forward, I think we will have to review what we are doing, the subsidy amounts, the targeting, the income levels of the beneficiaries, so that we can continue and continue at the same pace and accelerate. So probably soon we will be seeing some review of the parameters with the technical help, definitely of the World Bank group who have been helping us all through the past years. So that's that's quite a lesson, that you have to be dynamic and responsive to market challenges by reviewing also your parameters.
Dr. Marja, how do you see the future in light of all this?
Well, first we have to muddle through this whole period of depression and inflation and so on. But I'm sure that since it is not so bad, I think this can all work out very well. Certainly because there is flexibility in Egypt between the interest rate subsidy and the down payment subsidy. And by managing between these two types of subsidies on the demand side, you can keep a stable income level that you reach, because you have the flexibility with your down payment subsidy to indeed help the lower income groups with higher amounts than the higher income groups. And that is very important to keep reaching down market. So that subsidy package has to work. And secondly, the financial system has to continue to work. So that's very important for each and every country in the room, that, you know, if the financial sector doesn't come into this market segment, there is no way that the government can do it alone with subsidies. So that's very important going forward. So I should stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marja. We greatly appreciate that you were able to connect virtually. Thank you so much, Dr. May, for such an enriching and insightful discussion.
Thank you so much, Laila, and I hope we will see you. We will see you all in the trip, and I hope Marja can join if she's here in Cairo.
Thank you so much. Do we have time for questions? Can we have a question?
It is lunchtime, but I think we can manage one or two questions.
Couple of questions.
For Marja before she leaves?
Yeah, please.
Yes. First of all, Marja, I congratulate you. You taught very well May. And I hope my son Burhan in Gabon and my daughter Fatima, both you are students in Wharton Business School, will achieve the same result. Marja, yeah, you told us long time, repeat it again when I even make your course myself, that there is some unsustainable subsidies. And the countries who have not the eligibility of Egypt. And today we are talking about affordable and green. And sometimes the investment of the infrastructure before making the housing green, which will allow the reduction of the cost of energy and wastewater treatment, which is important, need an extra investment. Now that you advise the World Bank, who doesn't have the system, this I can prove, to allow extra cost and subsidies for the infrastructure, what subsidies you will advise to keep and what you disadvise, and that's not sustainable. Thank you.
Yeah, as May pointed out, and May, you should come in here really, but as May pointed out, there are subsidies on the supply side, and that is nearly always unavoidable when you want to reach the income levels that this program is trying to reach. But the good part is that if the government can control the location, can support the offsite infrastructure, and then can work with private contractors to keep the prices low, these contractors do not run a lot of market risk because the offtake is guaranteed because there is access to a mortgage and a subsidy. So that offtake part is off the table. So by providing the infrastructure necessary, you can keep the prices of the houses down. And with then the combination of a subsidy and a mortgage loan, the package is working. It is difficult still to do this on a full developer basis. And May can talk about that better than I can, although we are working together on trying to get the private sector to participate really as developers, as large-scale developers, even though they don't have the market risk, even in a PPP arrangement, because of the subsidy program that has all the beneficiaries, the applicants vetted, and so on and so forth. It still remains difficult to do the full program through private developers. So the use of private contractors with smaller margins because they have very little risk is still the model that works well together with supply and demand side subsidies. But the total subsidy level should always be contained, yeah, as May explained. Maybe
we rely entirely on private contractors, and as Marja explained, the subsidy component together with the mortgage loan, even with some increase in costs in green housing, I think it can be absorbed by a beneficiary. My colleague Dr. Hind Farrouh maybe will talk later in a session about our green and how we are managing to keep the cost at a slight differential between the conventional low-income housing we are building and the green housing part. And also we will rely on World Bank assistance, and probably IFC also will come in with us at a stage, because we want to do more of green in the coming period without putting any constraints on beneficiaries to be able to afford the loan and the down payment and the rest of the conditions that we used to offer through conventional parts.
I guess by that we've ended our session. Thank you so much for listening in. Thank you.